Let's start talking a little bit about foreign trade agreements. We'll throw GSP in here as well. And I think what we're seeing, and I think where everyone's starting to get a little nervous is maybe the best word to use here, is that we have now GSP being removed from products that originate in India, and India turning around and putting retaliatory tariffs on things. We've seen this with Section 301. We issue, additional duties on things that are imported from China, and it turns around and we get retaliatory on the back end. And so, when you start to think about this, these become an important tool to look for opportunities to maybe source in a different light, but also to kind of always know in the back of your mind, especially when we talk about GSP, it has to continually get renewed. You look at something like NAFTA, or you look at something like CAFTA. Those free trade agreements function a little differently in terms of just how they're written and how they work. So, when you start looking at free trade agreements, I would caution a few things when we start talking about using these as a tool for duty avoidance. And I guess the first thing I would caution is make sure the duty savings is worth the reward. And I don't know, I'm sure you've probably had this conversation a lot with clients, but I can't tell you the number of times someone says, I claim Australia free trade agreement every time something comes in, and we take a look and they saved $48 last year. And it's like, is that $48 worth the claiming and the amount of, compliance work and proof that has to go in? And, I don't think we have a number, but, to us, it really doesn't make good business sense to do this. And so I don't know if maybe you guys share a number, or if there's a number that even personally that you feel that says, at some point this is starting to get worth the risk.
I think that's a company by company consideration. There's big companies and small companies. $100,000 in savings might mean a lot to a smaller company, where it might not mean a lot to a very large, apparel importer. We deal with a lot of apparel companies. Because if you make the free trade claim or you make the GSP claim, you've got to be prepared to prove it if customs asks. And there's a lot of record keeping that goes into it that customs is going to expect to see to substantiate a claim. So, I can't give you a number that's going to work for everybody, because it's going to vary, but Adam's right. I wouldn't make this claim haphazardly. You're going to want to make sure you qualify beforehand and make sure your record keeping can prove it if asked by customs or if you're audited. I also think a large part of the work we've been seeing recently with the Section 232 and Section 301 tariffs, more so 301, is moving production outside of China and creating a product that is no longer a product of China. For example, if you want to move production from China to Korea, the good has to undergo a substantial transformation. That's the term of art customs will use when determining when raw materials of one country are manufactured in the second country. Now, if there's a company or there's a country that has a free trade agreement with the U.S., you can kind of kill two birds with one stone, because you're going to want to make sure that your good qualifies under that foreign trade agreement.
Right.
So you can get in there and make sure it qualifies, and chances are those operations that'll have to be done on the raw materials from China or any other country to meet that foreign trade agreement, you'll have a level of comfort that it also affects a substantial transformation. So you can guarantee that you qualify under the foreign trade agreement and you're not a product of China, making this thing totally duty-free. But the proof's always in the pudding. You got to make sure you can prove it.
Right. And I also think that, we've seen it in the past where someone maybe moves product from one free trade agreement country to another, but that doesn't mean that product's still going to qualify. And a lot of people tend to take a one-size-fits-all approach, like, well, my product qualified for NAFTA, but now I'm going to actually make it in Korea because it just makes more sense. It's gonna qualify for the Korean free trade agreement. All of a sudden, we're like, well, actually, no, it doesn't. And so,
because all free trade, foreign trade agreements, they're generally, a lot of them are different. I mean, they generally fall within two camps. One a tariff shift camp where goods have to undergo, non-originating goods have to undergo a tariff shift from one code to another to be considered an originating component and hence qualifying for the foreign trade agreement, whereas other foreign trade agreements just define what an originating good is. And any non-originating components will have to pass that substantial transformation test, or in some cases, a double substantial transformation test.
Right. So I think what you're saying, I know what I'm saying is it's a great way. Right. It's a great way to avoid duties, assuming that we do the due diligence on the front end to make sure our product actually qualifies.
That's right.